All right. That's why I don't use it. It makes everybody jump.
Yeah.
All right. 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the City of Glen Rose City Council. At this time, I'll ask everyone to please rise for the invocation.
Yes, I will. Please pray with us. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for the new year. Lord, we thank you that we are all healthy, we are all happy, and we are all wise. Lord, by following your word, Lord, we can become more happy and more wise. Lord, we ask that you continue to bless the city of Glen Rose, Lord, that we ask that you would empower us with a special feeling, with a special bit of wisdom in making the decisions for the city of Glen Rose. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Here.
Councilmember Harris. Here. Councilmember Freeze.
Present.
Councilmember Conrad.
Here.
Councilmember Walker.
Here.
Each person who addresses the city council shall do so in an orderly manner. All wishing to speak must approach the podium, state their name and address for the record. Comments from the public during the agenda items for the public hearings, as well as the agenda items for individual consideration, will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Your time cannot be given to another person, and you will only be allowed to speak once. At this time, I want to remind everyone to please turn your cell phones off or on silent. Council members are reminded not to text or surf the internet during the meeting. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the citizen visitor comment section. Rex Miller.
Oh, well, this was for
He's on the
something that's
agenda.
coming up later for me.
He's on the agenda.
Okay, you signed up for a non-agenda item. Which item would you like to speak on?
He's on the floor. Let's.
The 400 Biloxi Street. Dennis Moore.
I want to say thank you to the city because the handicapped areas are easy to get to. I've been for about a month and I've been being very sympathetic to that and seeing the issues. It's not where the handicap place is, how close is it to the door. So I appreciate the cities are very close to the door. And I would just going through this in the comprehensive plan, and when new things are being built, I'd ask you to look closely at that, where they're at. The Dollar General is real easy to get into because it's right in the front on either side. But I mean, you don't understand something like that till you're experiencing it yourself. I never thought about it till all this. I appreciate that it's easy to get in and out of here.
At this time, I have nobody else signed up to speak on non-agenda items. Do I have anyone in the audience that would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Well, then we will move on. I've had a request to move item 11 up. So we are going to, our first item is going to be discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding traffic control at Elm River Market. Mr. Lenz.
Mayor, at your request, I had asked some representatives of TxDOT to attend tonight's meeting, and I see that Jeremy Dooley is here. And do you have anybody with you, Jeremy?
This is Noel Spar. He's our
Noel?
assistant area engineer.
All right, we appreciate you all being here, and if you would like to come up and address the council on these traffic control matters. We've got issues of traffic lights and issues of manual direction of traffic at that intersection.
So the main thing that he asked us to come here and speak on was the light over at Elm and Bernard. I know that y'all put forth, was it here that the motion to push TxDOT for that signal was put through? So I did forward that on to our traffic section, and we've been talking with our traffic section. We've set up what's called a traffic signal warrant study. They basically come in and count cars and see if we have enough traffic at that signal or at that intersection to warrant a signal. It's been done in the past and pretty recently, I think it was 2018, 17. But they did it outside of the school schedule, and we think that's a big reason why it didn't meet warrants. So I hope to have that warrant done by the time I got here. It's under process right now, but I pushed it back to make sure it matched the school schedule. So we are in the process of getting those warrants. But even if it does meet warrants, we still have a lot of problems at that intersection, mainly space. Every time when they push through those warrants, it won't just say, hey, we can put a signal there. You can put a signal there if you put these turn lanes in. And if you put these signal poles. Yeah.
Just for clarification, I don't know, what's a warrant? What do you mean by that?
It's, so putting a signal at an intersection that doesn't have enough traffic is a safety issue in and of itself. So warrants are basically just saying, we go out and count that it has enough traffic to warrant a signal. That a signal would be the safer option there instead of a stop sign or a red light.
Okay.
So meeting warrants just means it has enough traffic to put a signal there. So even if it meets warrants, which I think it will on a school year, you know, there is a lot of traffic at that light. But looking at the major direction of the traffic, which is coming northbound on 144, turning left onto Bernard, they're going to want, and we're going to need a turn lane, left turn lane there and a right turn lane there. And we have no room for those. And it's all historic. And we have a ton of overhead utilities, and we have ADA concerns like you were talking about earlier. If you put in new signal poles, it's going to shrink your sidewalks and you're not going to be an ADA anymore. So even if we meet warrants, I'll send Michael that study when we get it and we can start those conversations. But even if we meet warrants, it's going to be a long process and potentially impossible to get a signal there, honestly.
So I have a question.
Go ahead.
Here's the deal. We didn't want a traffic light. We want our workers, our employees, our parents, our citizens, our county residents to be able to get through that intersection in a reasonable amount of time. I happen to have the luxury in the morning of being on the other side. So what takes me 3 minutes to do takes some of my friends and neighbors 20 minutes to do. So our ask, or longer. So our ask was we're not intentionally or not initially for a traffic light. Our ask was, we wanted to have our police officers out there managing traffic. We were told that TxDOT would not allow that and that a light was our only option. The solution is what we're interested in, not the means to that solution. It sounds like you're saying a light is unlikely to be a means to that solution. So now not having that as an option, it seems to fall back on our police patrolling it at particular times is the option to manage it.
And I had that conversation with our head of traffic, and their first reaction when I put forth the idea of somebody out there directing traffic, they said no. And then as I brought them on Google Earth to this intersection, look at it, tell us how we can do something better, then it became pretty apparent there wasn't a ton of options. And so at that point, they said, well, we won't say no to the police being out there or somebody being out there directing traffic. It is a safety issue. I mean, you have somebody in an intersection, there's no way around that. So TxDOT is not going to give permission or approval, or nobody's going to stamp it or anything like that. But if the city feels comfortable doing it, and if you have a police officer that feels comfortable doing it, we're not going to stop you. We're not going to tell you you can't.
So Stan, with that in mind, this seems to me like something we should have already done, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. But we're where we are now, and we have parents and citizens sitting at that intersection for entirely too long. If we're being told that we're not going to get approval, but it's basically your city, your call, then what else do we need to do so this can start tomorrow?
Well, that may be all we need to do. I would like to explore it a little bit further with TxDOT and see why they would not give us actual written permission to do so. I would like to understand why they wouldn't allow us that permission. But it may be, Ms. Conrad, that that's all we need.
Okay. If they're saying it's not something they do, then how can that be something that we need? So I guess my question is, can we start this tomorrow and you guys figure it out? And then come back to us and let us know what changes we need to make, if any, to be in compliance?
Well, my preference would be we wait and explore that a little bit further with TxDOT as to why they won't. Am I hearing that they will not, or that they never do it, or that they're not going to do it here?
Basically, TxDOT doesn't have a procedure for it. We don't have any liability protection the way that we have in all of our procedures and our plans and in our
Right, so
design
if you have a
manual.
procedure, then you're stamping it as something you do and we support.
Exactly. We know it's safe. We've tested it. We have our processes. There's nothing for this. And so nobody's going to step up and take on the liability of if something happened. You basically stamped it as you would a set of plans. I don't see anybody stepping up to take that liability on something that we really have no experience in.
So I do have a question, and Stan, this might be a question for you. Like when the promise lets out, we do have an officer that directs traffic to get people out of that parking lot, out on the road, or when you've got a big ball game that lets out in places, they have officers directing traffic. Is this any different than that would be?
Yes. This is state highway.
Well, sometimes that is.
Yeah, they're on
Well, the
sale.
promise isn't, but ball games are.
Well, the question is, obviously this has happened in other places. I don't think Glen Rose is the first place to exist where we go, oh my goodness, we need manual traffic control. So with that in mind, the question is, what's the differentiator? Why can you do it? Or is it just a matter of scheduled constant times? Because that's what I've heard. I've heard that there's a difference between being approved to do it event driven versus this is what you're doing on a regular basis.
Yeah, and there's like emergency
Yeah.
manual traffic control stuff like that is set up and allotted for. I don't honestly know if that's even something that TxDOT has a procedure for, or if it's just understood. I would have to look that up.
They
But
just do it.
yeah, we may be able to find an agreement for emergency situations and maybe build off of that. But I couldn't tell you off the top of my
Well,
head.
it is event driven. It's event driven by school starting and school letting out. Mostly start.
Okay. So it doesn't sound like there's any impediment to us starting tomorrow. There may be some additional work that needs to be done to solidify it, but TxDOT isn't gonna come after us and fine us for doing it, right?
Yeah, and that may be our best solution is to begin it on kind of an interim, limited basis, and build off of that and determine if there's any hindrance to us doing this down the road.
So basically what you're saying is that we don't have to have your permission, but we're accepting all liability.
Yes.
Well, again, which is why I think we want to do it on a very limited basis and make sure we understand and all agree with exactly what we are doing and not doing out there.
Limited to, because our conversation has primarily been around the school in and out hours. So
Right.
let me say this, here's what I want, and then we can discuss further. I want our police officers working that intersection, morning and afternoon, school in, school out, anytime there's a school day, period.
What about,
And we can learn it, and they'll be able to come back to us and let us know if Tuesdays, everybody's at the high school. So, I mean, we can learn and adjust from there. But that's what I think we need to do right now, is start being at that intersection, school starts and
what
school
about
ends.
just start it when school starts?
Why?
And see how it progresses.
But what's that, I mean, what's
To
it
me,
like?
it's not as-
August?
No.
In the mornings.
In the mornings, I'm talking about mornings instead of afternoons. It's not as, I mean, it's bad, but it's not as bad in the afternoons.
Well, I will say, working on that corner, it's not just a matter of how long it takes to get through it. It would be beneficial to have a police officer there on that corner anyway, because of all of the kids who are peeling out around that corner and trying to let the whole city hear their mufflers, how loud they are, and how fast they can go, and how smoke comes out of their tires.
Jeremy.
You know. To have an officer there would kind of impede a lot of that kind of dangerous traffic, because, you know, people have almost been hit trying to walk across the sidewalk because people want to be cool, I guess, when they go around the corner.
And managing the big trucks coming through, right? When now 7 cars are trying to figure out how to reverse to make room for this truck to make a turn. So, and there's a lot more cars there at that time versus.
And the fights that happen with the people who don't move out of the way with the problem.
Okay,
Jeremy, to your time study or the study, can can you give us some idea of what that timeline maybe would look like?
When those studies will be done. It should be in the next few weeks. They were out to count. They told me early January. I told them to make sure it was after the 9th, I believe is when school started, or the 4th, I can't remember. But basically, I made sure that it matched the school calendar. So they'll get the counts, and then it'll go to either consultant firm or our traffic division, and they'll look at the counts and make some recommendations, write up a report. It typically goes pretty quick. I would expect it within the month.
And you would let us know, hey, we want to do traffic studies on these days, because those days we wouldn't have our officers out there. So, or does it matter? It's just the count?
It's just the number. It's the number of turning actions. We have a different setup for counting wrecks or anything like that. So no, for the warrant signal, it's just how many cars are coming.
So they could be out there and it wouldn't affect your, okay,
That should have already been done, but it's not something to worry about y'all's planning.
okay.
So,
Thank you.
if I may ask the city attorney a question. So Stan, if TxDOT won't give the permit because of the safety issues they said, and the sheriff's department quit doing traffic control at that intersection manually because of safety issues before, are we creating any large liability issues for the city?
Well, Michael, maybe elaborate on what you mean they quit doing it because of safety issues.
So my understanding is that the sheriff's department used to direct traffic at that intersection, and the chief deputy put an end to that practice because of concerns about liability and safety.
Michael, I'll clarify. I actually spoke with them
Thursday.
Thursday, and they said that there were never safety concerns out at that intersection, that was not a reason for the decision to remove. I can't remember, was it capacity? It was an allotment. Where do we want to keep our police officers or our officers? So I asked that question, and I asked it clarifying probably 3 or 4 different ways to make sure. And they said that it was a never safety concern, was not a reason why they stopped doing it.
Well, I had understood that Chief Deputy McCravey had said that. Chief Martin, is that what you heard?
That is correct.
Well, our current sheriff's office doesn't have a.
I can say Dwayne's concern was that there is an element of it that is safety related, but that there is a piece of this that, we are providing the service to the community to get people through the intersection in a reasonable manner. And I think this is pretty much low hanging fruit, and it's a yes.
Do you have any other questions for Mr. Dooley?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any citizen comments on this item?
What?
Citizen
Oh.
comments?
Sorry, I can't hear.
Kelly's sitting on the floor. Your chair is real low.
Chief Martin, do you have anything you'd like to add or say, or? So what's the pleasure of the council on this?
I make a motion that we begin traffic control at the intersection of Elm and Bernard on all school days, the start of the morning for school traffic and at the afternoon for school traffic.
Second.
What times do those need to be?
No.
Day, the time.
What, like
You may want to not put a time frame on it and just simply direct traffic enforcement at that intersection.
Okay,
Okay. That's
that's your motion?
Yeah.
And then I have a second from George. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Aye. Third. Okay, are there any other items on the agenda that city attorney for?
trying to think. I guess not. That was item 11.
Nothing?
Yes. I can't think of anything.
Are we taking letting go? All right, thank you, Stan.
All right, you're welcome. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we're going to move on to the public hearings section of our agenda. This is a reminder, this is an area for public comments. There will not be any discussion amongst the council, and there will not really be any correspondence back and forth. I'm going to open this meeting or this public hearing at 5:49. First public hearing regarding the proposed annexation of a 1.321 acre city in Wheeling County School Abstract 136 being a portion of that certain 4.58 acre tract of land described in deed to VRE Glenrose 2.0 LLC, instrument number 2022-2651, official public record, Somerville County, Texas, and being located on the south side of Highway 67, adjacent to and east of the VRE Glenrose 711 addition. Do we have any public comments on this matter? Public comment? Okay.
I'm Patrick Fahey, and I live at 1871 County Road 2026 in the unincorporated area of the county. I'm here to, I emailed each one of you a more detailed, I only got 3 minutes, so this is on Facebook, and here is it. The first thing I want to say is, to me, this is not about McDonald's or any other business. It's 1.3 acres. This is about the Special Assistance District, called this really the Special Assistance Tax District. That was voted on in November of 2021. At that time, residents of both the city and the county voted to approve by 60-something votes this Special Assistance District. This Special Assistance District is governed by the law, and I've given the statute and quoted the statute all over the place. The county commissioners at that time, when they proposed that, they could have made that sales tax anywhere from 1.18% all the way up to the 2% max. They chose to put the 2% and it was approved. I'm not a lawyer, but in my opinion, that's the law. That's not going to change. Now, can you find a lawyer who'll tell you that the commissioners can change it? Sure, you can. That's what lawyers do. But in practical terms, this commissioner's court is not going to change that 2% sales tax. That's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen over the next 2 years. It may happen over the next 2 years as you vote new commissioner. Right now, you don't have the votes because they don't believe they have the legal authority, and neither do I, to change that. And they can't dissolve it without a unanimous vote of all 5 of the county commissioners. But there is a solution to this problem. As y'all constantly remind me, city taxpayers pay money, pay taxes. They paid the last year, SCAB gave me records for $1.3 million in property taxes went to the county. The county has showed me what I think is proof. They tell me they've given it to you, where the city has put back into the city of Glenrose $3 million in public safety only. And by public safety only, I mean fire, EMS, rescue, and sheriff's patrol and investigation. That doesn't cover anything else that we all share together. The courts, the clerks, the attorneys, all that, we all share that. The library's a part, $3 million just for public safety. Okay, this new area, the only thing the city would be solely providing would be sewer. So my solution to this problem is already the city, and the other thing I'd like to say is, since you pay taxes to the county, you're a constituent. Every resident of the city is a constituent of the commissioners, not just of the city council. You know, you're their constituent, so you tell them, okay, and by law, they are the ones, they're the board, just like the hospital board or the SCAD board or the water board. They are the ones by law that will decide where this 2% of sales tax will go. And it will be a lot of money coming out of McDonald's. And what you should be doing, instead of trying to get them to change, is to lobby them as citizens. We need this, we need that. Would you put the money there?
Anyone else wish to speak on this item? Okay, we'll move on to our next public hearing. Public hearing regarding a proposed zoning designation of general commercial B2 for 1.321 acres situated in the Neelam County School Abstract 136, being a portion of that certain 4.58 acre tract of land described in deed to VRE Glenrose 2.0 LLC, instrument number 2022-2651, official public records, Somerville County, Texas, and being located on the south side of Highway 67, adjacent to and east of the VRE Glenrose 711 addition. We have any public comments on this side? Okay, we'll move on to our next public hearing. Public hearing on a petition for annexation by Hunter Rifle of a 0.1 acre tract in the Neelam County School Land Survey Abstract number 136, being a portion of the tract described as Tract 2 to Woodcrest Cattle and Land Limited Partnership by a deed recorded as document number 2014-1198, official public records, Somerville County, Texas, and being located at the far northwest end of Mesa Drive. Any public comments on this item? Okay, we'll move on to our next public hearing. Public hearing regarding request to rezone the property located at 404 Biloxi Street, being legally described as a 7.890 acres out of the J.A. Hernandez Survey, Tract 21, Abstract A41, in the city of Glen Rose, Somerville County, Texas, and identified as parcel number R2820 by the Somerville County Appraisal District from R1 Single Family Residential District to B1 Restricted Commercial. Do I have any further comments on this item? Okay, there being no comments, I will close this public hearing at 5:55 p.m. And then we will move on to item 5, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding an ordinance annexing 1.321 acres situated in the Milam County School Abstract 136, being a portion of that certain 4.58 acre tract of land described in deed to DRE Deliverers 2.0 LLC, instrument number 2022-2651, official public records, Somerville County, Texas, and being located on the south side of Highway 67, adjacent to the east of the DRE Leonard 711 division. Mr. Lawrence.
So, Mayor, members of the council, this is the property next to 7-Eleven that had been discussed for annexation previously and had been postponed till this meeting. I believe the parties requesting annexation have representation here. We'll tune over with Aaron Stark is here. Would you like to speak to council?
Yes, please.
Please come to the podium.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Will Schoonover, Baron Stark Engineers. I have with me Tim Donovan for Dodd. Tim?
No, just appreciate the time, appreciate the comments from the gentleman earlier. As representative from Verdad Real Estate, we obviously built the 7-Eleven a couple years ago. Had a really good experience with the town, with the city of Glen Rose, and with Somerville County. I know there's some tax issues have changed since then, but our goal is to get this property rezoned as an amenity to the community, as an increase in tax base, both ad valorem and sales tax for the community, and to move forward with city services here. So thank you guys for your consideration.
Questions?
Thank you.
Ms. Harris?
My question is, if this does not get annexed, would you be willing to possibly put in a sewer system and still come to Glen Rose, Somerville County?
That I would not be able to answer without the tenants weigh in. The tenant that we're working with for the restaurant piece next to McDonald's, or I'm sorry, next to 7-Eleven is McDonald's. They do run on septic systems. It's not their choice. I spoke with them last week. They're a little bit frustrated with the process as well. Obviously, the water and sewer is right there, ready to be tapped into. It's just a matter of extending it to the property line. They do run on septic. Everybody knows McDonald's is everywhere. So in certain situations where they have to run up on septic, they do. It is an additional cost. It is something that they will explore, but at the end of the day, whether or not they move forward without the sewer, I couldn't tell you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sir, what's your preference?
Preference is to tie into the sewer and be annexed into the city. Absolutely.
Questions?
Would it be fair to estimate, since we're talking about the taxes and the collection as ad valorem, which I've heard numbers thrown around, like we'll collect millions over years, for a similarly situated property, we're going to collect about $2,000 a year. in ad valorem. So many of you in this room, many of you listening will pay more on your property tax than this property will pay in the same given year. So frankly, ad valorem is not something of enough consequence to weigh in considering the other things that are going to happen. Is a reasonable estimate 2 cents on the dollar of sales? I've read that McDonald's averages, an average McDonald's is $2.7 million a year. Does that sound somewhere in the ballpark?
It's probably close.
Okay, if that's the number, then there's going to be an annual collection of 54,000 plus a year. So comparing and saying, well, the city gets ad valorem tax, $2,000 a year, while the sales tax district will be getting $54,000 a year. Couple of other things to think about with that. We talk about how it was voted on by city residents and county residents alone. What was never disclosed was that as the city annexed, they would lose the right to that sales tax dollar. It was understood that the county was going to collect it, wonderful. But as the city annexed, as had always happened, as the city annexed, that 2 cents would then be transitioned over to the city. Because the balance sheet of the city increases every time we annex. The balance sheet of the county decreases every time we annex. And then that annexation also pays for the next annexation and the next annexation. So while there's a water line and a sewer line right there right now, as we continue to expand, it will cost us $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 to expand lines. So no individual business is going to pay the expense of growth. That expense of growth is paid for in multiple ways, and many of them is sales tax. So should we continue to grow and continue to increase our expenses and get a minuscule return on that investment, it is to the detriment of everyone here. And in fact, simply a city, if a restaurant opened up outside of our county line, it's very likely that that restaurant would actually pull some of the business out of our city limits. That business would likely pull enough business away from the properties inside the city limits that we could lose more than we gain in ad valorem taxes. That's not what's talked about. It's a difficult conversation. It's a lot of it is. Then that doesn't talk about the increase in code enforcement. There's additional expenses besides just the annexation expense.
Right.
And so we are unique in that you see lots of variations. You see some cities getting 2 cents. You see some cities getting none, although I actually haven't come across that yet. My understanding is a typical standard is the county gets a half a cent for a cent and a half that the city gets. I'd like to propose, and I think I've said this in the last meeting, but I can't recall. I'd like to propose that we move forward, that we offer the county a deal where we would keep 1 cent and they would keep 1 cent. I don't want the thought to be, we're trying to keep businesses out. That is not the message. I'm excited, as we've talked about. I apologize that this has been, that you guys have been the first ones to have to submit.
Yeah, I can just say, as far as the sewer extension, we would be paying for that.
Right.
And the ad valorem taxes, I'd have to go back and look what the taxes were on the 7-Eleven that we built, but that was, roughly a $3 million property value when the improvements were done. So I'm not sure what the property taxes were there, but I would assume that it was more than $2,000.
I compared it to similar businesses already in the town. So while it may not be 2,000, it's not going to be 54,000. It's not going to be 24,000. And so that's where, when we look at all of those kind of compounded, what I think is the comfortable thing to do is for us to make an annexation agreement, not just for this 7-Eleven, not just for this McDonald's, because we don't want you to have to go through this every time we want to annex property. This can absolutely happen. This will happen if we can get the water district and the county to work with us and to partner with us so that everybody benefits to some degree from this, and at least to some degree proportionally. So I support you guys coming. As you and I have talked, I continue to try to work through what do we need to do next. It will absolutely happen if we can get the county and the water district to just come to some compromise with us. That's what I want to work on.
Okay, I have the letter that was sent out to the residents. And while it doesn't come out and say that annexation will not apply to this, it does not say that we're going to be taking it away from everything. Second of all, I talked to TAC today, and this comes through the comptroller's office because it was an election. The citizens voted on it, both city and county, It went through the comptroller's office, through the state, and there is nothing that they can find at this time that says that the county can hand over money to the city. There are only 5 things that the comptroller told the county that they could use for that money for. Number 1 would be construction, maintenance, and improvement of roads or highways, which that would be beneficial to us. You know, I mean, there's gonna be roads, highways that we need to fix. Number 2 is the provision of law enforcement and detention services. There's always been this back and forth about how, you know, the city pays cities pay residents, pay county taxes, you know, we should get part of that. Well, this would just go to help the city pay what the county might feel is their share, okay? So they may be getting the sales tax, but they are also gonna be providing the law enforcement, detention, and that type of stuff. Number 3, the maintenance or improvement of libraries, museums, parks, and other recreational facilities. County runs the library. County has every park in the city with the exception of Chauncey Park right behind us. County provides most of the.
Big Rocks.
And Big Rocks, yes.
Soccer park, right?
And
And what?
I mean, not soccer park, Sonic Park.
Sonic Park.
County has Sonic Park. That's counties. So you've got all the parks that the county maintains. You've got the library, you've got the senior citizen center, which the city does give a little bit to them, but a majority is financed by the county as well as the state. The county has to provide a certain number of dollars in order for the senior center to get grants to be able to run more, you know, off of that. The 4th thing is provision of services that benefit the public health and welfare, which includes provision for firefighting, fire prevention services, EMS, that type of stuff. And then the 5th one is promotion of economic development and tourism. So there are only 5 things that can be used, and none of these 5 things say that they can give it to the city. But it does say that it could be used for facilities, for emergency services, for that type of stuff. So I think if you're trying to get money out of the county and it's gonna go through the state, the comptroller's office, we're not gonna get it. So my question is, if we're gonna run off, because this is basically gonna run off businesses, you know, because we are gonna grow unless the word gets out that the city and the county are fighting all the time about taxes, and the city and the county are fighting over who pays the majority of the fire department, who pays the majority of the sheriff's department, you know, who pays this, who pays that. You know, guys, I started this and I wish I hadn't ever started this whenever I ran for this position of one city, one county. But we are one city and one county. And I can guarantee you people that come here to visit and live, they don't know where the city limits boundaries are. All they know is that they have come into Somervell County. Oh, look, there's a McDonald's. Oh, look, there's Dollar Tree. Oh, look, there's this. They don't care where it comes from. We, the city, according to all of our financial reports in here, are definitely not hurting for money. If you want to compare percentages of reserve funds for the county versus reserve funds for the city and how much is spent out in budget and stuff, city's in much better shape than the county is. So I do have an issue with, I mean, I think we all should be able to work together, yes, but I mean, the city is not just getting ad valorem tax on this.
Well, just on that point, I just pulled it while you're talking. So the 7-Eleven that we built next door, the taxes last year on that were just over 27,324, and 6,300 of that went to Somerville County. The rest is City of Glen Rose, Glen Rose ISD, Hospital District, and Somerville Water.
And just for clarification, what is the rate for the Glen Rose ISD? Biggest taxpayer, biggest.
It's the highest.
Glen Rose ISD is 13,281.
Over 50% of it in GRISD.
Right, so the 24,000 is not what's coming to the city. The 24,000 is the ad valorem tax, of which probably 3,000 of that is coming to the city when you take out what's going to the county, 50% going, so looks like it's not far off. Okay.
Mayor. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
No. Another thing to consider too is the city is also going to be getting trash. They'll be getting sewer. So, I mean, it's not like the city's not going to be making any money off of this. They will be making money. I have an issue with the city wanting to make all the money off of it.
1% is not all.
But the thing is, we knew for a year in advance. The county notified the city a year in advance that they were gonna be putting this on the election.
I asked every single person on that county commission twice to their face, and every single one of them, as recently as last week, told me that they thought we would get the 2 cents whenever we annex. Every single one of them has told me that
I'm
when
just
directly
saying
asked.
that the city knew about it, but the city has had plenty of opportunity during that time to go ahead and annex these places. The water district has been planning for a future, by laying county water lines all over the county because they're looking for the future. We, however, as a city, have not done that. We are behind the curve because we have not planned for future growth until now. And all of a sudden, we're scrambling, trying to take up, trying to catch up and get places where other people haven't gotten.
Okay, so
So-
I'm gonna stop you
I know
there.
you will.
I'll yield my time if you still have something to go. I don't want to.
Because, number one, this sounds like something we need to ask our city attorney. And I do want to clarify that the city does not make money on their utilities.
That's
Our
right.
utility fund, or our general fund puts money into our utility fund.
And that is also not the norm for most cities.
You're absolutely right, but it is the norm for this one.
So if we,
Have a minute.
Let me see if we can get Stan.
I-
Stan,
I-
can we get over to Stan? Can we try? Okay. Can we just, go ahead.
Pardon? The beautiful thing about having these laptops is you can pull up the local government code and you can read it verbatim. So I'm gonna read to you section 387.001, which is by definition this chapter is a district, means a county assistance district created under this chapter, chapter 387 of the local government code. All right? And then you can roll down here to section 387.006, and it talks about the general powers of a district. It says a district may, and then it lists the things that a district may do. And it goes all the way down to number 6. It says a district may enter into agreements with municipalities necessary or convenient to achieve the district's purposes, including agreements regarding the duration, rate, allocation between the district and the municipality of sales and use tax. And then a B, a district may contract with a public or private person to perform any act the district is authorized to perform under this chapter.
What
That- this-
things that it says,
There's
okay.
more.
It's what? It's exactly what it
It
is.
must be in the best interest of the residents or
No,
businesses
no.
in the district, if the city is not in the district. It must be.
Mr.
Read the whole thing, not just pick and choose.
I'm not picking and choosing anything. I'm reading you exactly what the local government
If
code
you
says.
read the whole code, it must be in the best interest of the residents of the district.
That is not what it says.
It's in the code. I posted that.
387.006.
so it sounds like we need legal assistance. I asked
I've
this,
already made the question.
oh, is he coming?
I've already asked him. We're trying to get a hold of him.
The general powers of the district, they may perform any act necessary to the full exercise of the district functions, except a grant or a loan from the U.S., an agency of political subdivision of the state, a public-private person. They may 3, acquire, sell, lease, convey, or otherwise dispose of property or an interest in property under the terms determined by the district. They may, number 4, they may employ necessary personnel. 5, they may adopt rules to govern the operation of the district and its employees and property. And 6, they may enter into agreements with municipalities necessary or convenient to achieve the district's purposes, including agreements regarding the duration, rate, and allocation between the district and the municipality of sales and use tax. Now, Patrick, that's about as clear as you can be that it's going to be split. It can be split.
Our city attorney said 2 minutes, we're gonna have him back on.
Awesome.
All right, so I think what we should do.
Okay, I found it.
Hold on, I'm speaking. I think we need to take a recess. Everybody needs a breather, so let's take a recess at 6:30.
Is he here?
Back if you want to keep going.
Never mind then.
There.
Hey, Stan,
Hey, I'm back.
Welcome back.
sorry to call you back. We have some questions. Mr. Freeze?
Sure.
Stan, how familiar are you with section 387 of the local government code, the county assistance district?
Well, I mean, sitting here right this second, George, I'm familiar with it, but not intimately to go over it in detail.
Do you think you could pull it up and do a quick scan of section 387 and come down to .006 and give us your opinion on whether or not a district and an entity can share the tax?
Yeah, George, I did look at that earlier this week. It Councilman Jocelyn's request, and I believe, I mean, my reading is that they can. I think that enables them to do so, yes.
But you can CAN.
What about section 387.003? Section A, 1 through 5? These are what the district can use the money for.
But if the district reallocates it, they're not using it.
And that is what the district determines that they want to do with their money.
But this is not what the district determines. This is what.
No, but it sounds like, but it
It's the
seems,
same thing.
Stan, would it be fair to say that if the district gets money, they can choose to allocate a portion of that money to another municipality, and then with the portion that they did not reallocate and that they kept themselves, they have to use that portion for the 5 specific items listed?
I think sitting here right now, yes, I think that's a correct statement. Yes.
So those limitations do apply, but they apply solely to the funds within that district that are being spent by that district. But that district, if they're allowed to transfer the money over, they're no longer beholden to that, and we're no longer beholden to that. Although that's likely where, a good amount of the money is going to spend regardless, but yeah. That was my only question.
Any other questions, comments, discussion up here on this one? Because I'm sure it's going to get bumpy.
I just had one more question.
Okay, Ms. Harris?
I'm just going to put it out there. So, are we saying that if the county does not give over 1%, that we will not annex this property? That's what we're
So
saying.
I think we should be looking at this as more than just this one property. So yes, my thing, because it's not just about this one property. There's the next property and the next property and the one that we have to put in a lift station that's gonna cost $300,000. And the developers are not willing to pay. They may be willing to pay the $1,000 that it costs to extend services, but when we turn around and say we need a lift station and that's gonna be $300,000, we're much more hard pressed to get that. So in light of considering the entirety of our annexation process and not just this one, if we've acted in a vacuum and we could just work on one thing at a time and that was it, it would be different. But
I'm
this
not
is our
looking at a
first one.
vacuum.
Right.
I know this is just McDonald's, this is just the start, but people are watching to see what happens
Right.
between the city and
So let's solve
McDonald's.
it.
Therefore, it could cut growth, period, if this does not
So
work.
that's why we should not be talking to the county about McDonald's. We should be having a conversation with the county about our annexation interlocal agreement. And then this is what we do, this is our process, and now everybody's really clear, because we didn't do this as a one-off, but we resolved it as here's the process with the water district, here's the process with the county, here's the process with the hospital district, whoever else has to be involved. We resolved that in this instance and use that as our process going forward. And then that's why I keep apologizing, because I'm so sorry that you guys are the first ones that are going through this and that you're having to go through these pains with us. But hopefully when that's done, the next time you come in, you'll know exactly what to expect, because we will have created a process and not just a one-time resolution.
And you know what? I know y'all know this, I've been with cities for over 20 years. And I brought development into Crowley, I brought development into Burleson. Y'all don't understand. The big picture is, this may be a little foot, but if this little foot gets chopped off, there's not gonna be a big picture down the road. So I'm just letting you know, chop away if you want, but don't be expecting a whole lot of development coming in after, okay? So that's all my question.
Ms. Walker?
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we annex this property.
Well, we need to send out for citizen comments first, but we can certainly do that. Do I have any citizen comments on this item? Mr. Hayden?
Okay, George, you are right, but I'm also right and the county's also right, because this is the deal. Anything that they do in reference to this, a special assistance district, has to benefit the residents or the businesses. And this I didn't have because my 3 minutes ran out. I meant to say this and I couldn't say it. At this time, there are 0 city residents or businesses in this new tax district because y'all haven't annexed anything yet. Once you start annexing it, you're adding businesses and residences. Then, from what they tell me, then it's the county's opinion that you can go to the commissioners or commissioners courts, general, you can go to them and say, okay, we're part of this district now, and it would be in our benefit if, let's say, for example, Bucks, LTD, Crown Vic there that he loves so much just blows up and you need a new police car. And you could ask the board, and that's what they are in this case, they're acting differently. They're acting as the tax board. It just happens to be here. It is the commissioner's court as opposed to a separate board like you have with the water district and every place else. That's how they pass the law. So that's the law. So you can go to the board. The more property you annex, you go all the way to the Brazos River, you've got more clout then because you have more businesses and residences in that district. And you simply go to them and say, I'll need it for this or that, fire truck, a new police car, to pay a policeman. So this is the deal. The city is not being hurt by the county now. The county is giving y'all money. The county is providing police and fire. Every penny that they've allocated so far under this new tax district has gone to the fire department. The city absolutely benefits from the fire department because it's 100% paid by the county. I just want this to work. I also want to make it clear, I'm not against the city. I'm in the city every day. I come here, I talk to people. If I have a heart attack in the city, I'm very happy that we have a fire department here. I'm very happy that Buck is out there doing traffic enforcement, something that the sheriff's office won't do. I'm glad that he does that. I want to have a city police, but we all have to get along. And the practical part is, instead of putting out the message that we're not business friendly, let this McDonald's, it is a McDonald's, we know that, he said it, let it come and get established, and then you negotiate from here on out with the commissioners that you want the money. They're not, I can tell you, this court is not going to go in there and change that 2%, but y'all can ask for specific money for specific things, and you can get it. You're getting it now, even though there are no people in the district. You're getting the benefit of the taxes. I'm sorry they passed that, without telling y'all or y'all not knowing that it's the law. And I am right about the part that says the only way they can absolve this tax district is with the benefit of the county and benefit of the businesses and the county within the citizens and businesses in the district. But I'm not against the city. I just want to get this money to help us all. And when I talk about the millions of dollars, I'm talking about in future development going to the Brazos River, not of them paying property tax.
Do we have other citizen comments on this item?
So Rex Miller, 404 Plexi. First, I've got to say thank you because this is wonderful education. We moved here a year ago, primarily because of that little statement up there. And I've been in commercial construction and development for over 40 years on a national and global scale. And this is just for my education. That doesn't really, McDonald's doesn't give me the impression of that statement there. And I'm assuming it's out of the city, and so we don't have control of that. But my concern is growth is already here. You just go through the development. The main problem is infrastructure, roads and water. It's not retail. Retail is going to come because of the kinds of people that are moving down here and all the development. So I'd rather continue to work on the vision that we've got and question, is what we're doing supporting that? Then, McDonald's, I'm sure, is coming. It's not my favorite thing. I don't want to see a 377 pop up here. And so that's my question. Do we have any say in things that are outside the city and the quality? We don't. Okay. My education. Thank you.
Any other citizen comments on this item? All right, so.
I have one other point I'd like to make. I made a statement back in September, October, November, whenever it was, that meeting. And I firmly believe that a rising tide does lift all boats. I am glad that the county has the assistance district. I am glad that the enterprises that are outside of the city in those areas that we could have never reached are paying a sales tax and helping the county. I think that's a wonderful development. But in this situation, where you have them butting up against us into our service area as we annex, I feel like we should be able to have an opportunity to split those pennies. And they can do it, and they should do it. I feel like that's the opportunity. Because as we cooperate closer and as we move forward together on other agreements we're working on, agreements that we've already put in place, agreements that we are going to be looking at again and reviewing, it's the opportunity to work closer together. Just like you said, one county, one city. I believe it. But I think it has to be right for everybody. It can't be at the expense of the city taxpayer. Because when we don't get the city tax revenue, sales tax revenue, what was it? Our report said it's 50-something% of our general receipts.
And also our reports say that every month we are increasing sales tax percentage at least 15 to 20% every month. For the last 2.5 years, we have increased.
But if you listen to Comptroller Hager's budget budget revenue estimate that he published yesterday, he told the legislature, and the same thing applies to us. You can't rely upon sales tax. We have seen opportunities.
That's right.
We have
That's
seen.
right. You can't rely on sales tax, and that's what the city's trying to do.
No, we're not trying to rely upon sales tax.
You're trying to get more city sales. You're saying that we can't run the city without sales tax.
What I said.
Any other comments up here? All right, so I have a motion from Councilwoman Walker to approve ordinance number 2023-01-10A, annexing this property. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Walker, a second from Ms. Harris. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed?
May I make a motion?
Stacy, do we need to make an alternative motion to deny it? How do we need to move forward?
Mr. Lowry,
No, you do not need to make one to deny. You can make an alternative motion to approve if you want, but you don't need one to deny.
Make an alternative motion to approve?
Well, it's not to approve. It's it's the next step. I don't know what we would call
He's
that.
saying we don't.
Oh, okay. Well, can I say out loud what I think we need to do? Can we establish Administrator Lemons and Mr. Freeze, especially considering this, you guys go talk to somebody in the county, pull together an interlocal agreement offer, extend that offer to them, see if there's any willingness to accept it, or if there's a recommendation to make a change, and start the interlocal agreement process. Obviously, Mr. Lowry would have to, and their lawyers would have to review it, but can we start the process of an annexation interlocal agreement and get that moving? Because there's a potential for us, this can happen unless no one's willing to give.
Mr. Lemons?
City Attorney, I believe this is related to the topic at hand, that the motion she wants to make. Would you have an objection to her making such a motion?
No, I don't have any objection to her making a motion to give you directive to go forward.
Okay, so Ms. King, you know what that motion needs to be?
the motion
A motion to
to,
direct staff to begin the process of requesting an interlocal annexation agreement. How's that sound?
And you were going to assign as council.
Assigning, yes, assigning Councilmember Freeze and Mr. Lemons.
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay, so I have that motion on the table. Do I have a second?
You don't want to do it? You want somebody else to do it?
I'll second it.
I meant assign someone else. I meant assign someone else.
I have a second from Mr. Freeze. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed?
I do have a question, though. If the county does not agree with what you're wanting to agree, are you going to deny annexing
Yes.
anything?
Yes.
Everything that we have?
I won't agree to a future, I can say as of right now, I will not agree to a future annexation unless we have an annexation agreement in place. That's where I am right now until I'm convinced otherwise.
All right, let's move on to the next item.
May I ask one clarifying question? Just, Councilmember Johnson, is there some resistance or something that could change in my motion to garner your interest?
There is, the county said that they're not interested in working with Mr. Lennox,
Oh,
so.
okay. So, okay, for the sake of getting something moving, who else wants to do it? I don't care who does it. I'll do it. How would you, yeah, Kelly, how's that? Thank you, how's that?
Kelly and I?
Yeah, then we have a yay and a nay in the room and hammer something out.
Do you agree to that?
Awesome, even better.
I'll make a motion.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so what is this motion?
Change from staff to Kelly.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second. Good idea, George.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so since
Thank y'all.
number 5 didn't pass, that means number 6, we can't zone something that's not annexed, correct?
Correct.
All right.
May I ask a question, Juliet? Ms. Douglas, further down, there's a third item for this around the plat, but it wasn't in the same order as this, so can we go ahead and visit that one while they're here and bump it up?
Well, we don't need to plat it.
Look, you can start the process if you're interested, and I would like to extend that offer. All right, there you go, thank you.
All right, well, what I am gonna do though is item 10 up, because I was supposed to have done that already.
Thanks, y'all.
Discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the City of Glen Rose fiscal year 2021-2022 financial audit. Can we let Stan? Can we let Stan go for real this time? Yes. Okay, thank you, Stan.
Good night, guys, again.
Thank you again.
Is this what was in our packet?
Yes.
We have a copy.
Oh, because we have to keep.
So we've already read it. I have every bit.
I was looking at that and thinking, oh, she called that like. What would be the word, not a interview?
All right, are we ready? Go ahead, sir.
My name's Michael Hamby.
Hey. Order, guys, come on, we're trying to move on.
Michael Hamby with the firm of Merritt McLean and Hamby. And we performed the annual audit for the city for September 30th, 2022. I'm here to present our findings or the audit. In the back of the bound report is a letter, a statement letter that I'm not going to spend any time going through, and the reason is that the real purpose of that letter is to identify findings and problems. We didn't have any findings this year. I'm not going to spend time on that. It does have the audit adjustments attached to it, which have been given to the administrative side of things for them to record. I will say that we received a lot of help with the audit, and we were able to get everything that we needed to be able to complete the audit, and it went very smoothly. In the bound report, I'm going to look at a couple of items that have a letterhead on it that an opinion and another statement, and then a couple of the numbers that are in the financial statements. I'm going to spend a lot of time on those. There are no negative things in here or problems, so I don't have anything major to bring up. So I'm just going to skim over some of the numbers, and then if you have questions, I'll try to answer them. Now, on page 1 is the independent auditor's report. The second paragraph there is the opinion paragraph, and it represents a clean audit opinion or an unmodified audit opinion, which is what you want or hope that your auditors put on the front of your report, and we did. So that's that's good. In the statements themselves, starting on page 9, is your statement of net position. And what we look for here predominantly are 2 items. The first is liquidity. I want to see that your current assets are sufficient to cover your current liabilities, which would be the liabilities that you've already incurred and that are due within the year. So only the current portion of your long-term debt, for example. And you have a 26-to-1 ratio, which is very good, excellent, actually. And so there are no liquidity problems or concerns from an audit standpoint. The second thing we look at on this page is the third line from the bottom, which is net investment in capital asset. And we look at, that is the net of your long-term assets, net of debt. And the reason we look at that is because we want to see, well, it's common for long-term assets to be purchased with debt. And so as those assets depreciate and the debt's paid down, we just want to make sure that that's a positive number essentially. And it is by a lot. So you're in very good shape as far as your debt. Your debt is, you have no debt in your governmental activities and less than $3 million now in your business type activities. So that's excellent. And I think half of what it was 4 or 5 years ago. So that's great. The next thing that I wanted to look at is on page 11. The first column is your general fund column. Again, it's your balance sheet. And the second to last number there is your total fund balance. The total fund balance for your general fund at the end of September 30th, 2022 is $6,676,451. You budgeted for it to be a little.
We don't have that number.
You don't have a page 11?
On page 11, we don't have 6,656,000, whatever you said.
The second to bottom number on the left-hand column.
Oh, okay. I was up higher.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that at 6,676? Okay.
Yeah.
The budget had it at 5,257,000. So you were $1.4 million to the good compared with budget. So that's excellent. And if you look, your budget to actual page is on page 37 towards the back. That is, there are a couple of things on there that are important to note, I think. One is that in your expenditures, none of your areas in your government, in your general fund, none of the departments were over budget. They were all under budget on expenses, which is excellent. The streets and highways was under, but you have, that's one that is somewhat based on grants coming in and the timing. And so that was sort of, it's under more than it would have been had there not been some decisions made to, on the timing of things. But having everything under budget is what we look for. And by statute, items should be budgeted before they're spent, and therefore it should always be under budget or at budget. And so it's not the case in some municipalities that we audit. So that's very good. That means that your administrative side is bringing you the budget to actual numbers and you are making the amendments that need to be made. So that's the way it's supposed to function, and it is functioning that way. And then on page 41, which is a little bit further back, is the last thing that I was going to mention, and that is on our letterhead again. This is where we look at controls, and specifically controls over disbursements. And when we do the audit, we look at all debt payments, virtually all capital expenditures, and then a sample of payroll, and then a sample of everything else. And for payroll, we're looking at to make sure that gross pay matches up with personnel records files, and that net pay is calculated correctly and is paid correctly, and if there are any deductions that besides taxes that they're authorized. And then with all the rest, we're looking to see that the checks or payments are made out to the correct vendor for the correct amount, and that the timing of the payments is reasonable for whatever it is. Sometimes with construction things, it's a longer wait, but generally it's within 30 days or whatever it is. And so those are the things we're looking at, as well as that the checks are properly signed. So in all of that, what this letter says is that in all of that, we didn't find any compliance issues, nor did we find any issues with any of those items that I just mentioned being inconsistent or incorrect. So, and that's all I was going to mention, unless there's some, yes.
I don't remember if it's the auditor or not. Do you have a rating for the city now as far as our finances go?
We don't rate, but we don't rate the cities, but as far as liquidity goes, the cash and investments and things that you have compared with the expenditures that you have, you're in very good shape.
Approximately how many cities do you audit for?
I think a dozen or so, 12 to 14, I think.
And all of them smaller cities like Monroe's? Or do you have any that are, do you do Abilene?
No, we don't do Abilene. We do Hyco, Toller, Meridian, around here, and probably a few others. I always go blank when standing up in front of people, but
Any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to the team that did the work that makes these results.
Absolutely.
Do you have any citizen comments on this item? Do I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2021-2022 financial audit as presented? I have a motion from Mr. Joslin, a second from Mr. Freeze. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 5-0 approved. Item 10. So now we'll move on to item 7. Discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding an ordinance annexing a 0.18 acre tract in the Milam County School Land Survey abstract number A1 through 6, being a portion of the tract described as tract 2, the Woodcrest Cattle and Land Limited Partnership by a deed recorded as document number 2014-1198, official public record, Somerville County, Texas, and being located at the far northwest end of Mesa Drive. Mr. Lennox.
Mayor and members of the council, we have been working with the developer on the Stoneview subdivision. And one of the things that the city required when this subdivision was revived, it had sat dormant for many years. It had a dead-end street, and there was no way for trash trucks or emergency vehicles to turn around. So we required that they put a cul-de-sac on the end of it. Well, it turns out that subdivision where the dead-end street was the edge of the city limits, and so their cul-de-sac ended up outside the city limits. And they're at the point where they've done everything that the city has asked them to do. As soon as we get a bond from them, we're ready to issue a letter of acceptance. And they want to dedicate all of those streets to the city. And so the city can't accept that cul-de-sac because it's outside the city limits. So that was the reason for this request for annexation. And they have signed a service agreement. They did ask permission for the annexation from the Somerville County Water District, and when we were at their board meeting on Monday, they granted that permission. So everything has been done. And we just need the city council to approve this annexation so that we can complete this process with this subdivision and issue them a letter of acceptance once we get a bond once we get a bond from them that's acceptable to our city attorney.
Questions or comments? Ms. Walker?
A question I have is, I was driving around trying to find Mesa Drive, when I did find it, it is behind a locked and closed gate. Is it a practice that we have public streets that are behind closed gates?
The reason they have done that is because the construction and the streets all dead ended. They didn't go through to anywhere, but
There's
as
people
soon,
living there now.
there is no one living, other than that there might be somebody associated with the subdivision. But that gate will be coming down.
Okay, because I was concerned that it's a public street and it's closed. So if the gate is not permanent.
Any further questions? Ms. Streeter?
Pam Streeter, 205 Southwest Bernard Street. I am up here to speak on behalf of the P&Z because the word annexation is in this. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not the same kind of annexation that the previous discussion was. This is about taking a cul-de-sac into a very small port of a road that has no houses on it, just to allow emergency vehicles to turn around. There's no water to it, there's no sewer to it, there's no property tax involved in it. So this is just simply a formality and not anything related to the previous discussions. In discussing this with the developer and with Michael, P&Z unanimously suggested that the annexation occur to allow this to move forward.
Thank you, ma'am.
Any other citizen comments on this item? Do I have a motion to approve ordinance number 2023-01-10C annexing this tract?
So moved.
Whoa, everybody made the motion.
Trying to move along.
So I have a motion from Mr. Johnson, a second from Ms. Harris. All those in favor, please raise your hands. 5-0 approved. Let's move on to item 8, discussion, consideration, possible action regarding an ordinance rezoning the property located at 404 Pulaski Street, being legally described as 7.890 acres out of the J.A. Hernandez survey, tract 21, abstract A41, in the city of Glen Oaks, Somerville County, Texas, and identified as parcel number R2820 of the Somerville County Appraisal District from R1 Single Family Residential District to B1 Restricted Commercial. Mr. Lemons?
So Mayor and members of the council, we have the statistics here on the cover sheet. A request for a rezoning was submitted on November 21st. There was a notice published in the paper on December 9th, and letters were sent out to property owners on December 12th. 15 letters have been confirmed as received. 1 letter was unconfirmed as received. 1 letter was returned. 1 favorable response has been returned, which is in your packet. And then the Planning and Zoning Commission met on December 27th, and they did have a quorum. The matter was reviewed and approved by a vote of 4-0.
Any questions for Mr. Lemons? Any questions for Ms. Streeter?
I do have a couple questions on this item.
For who?
The property owner, Ms. Streeter might know.
Here,
No.
Mr. Miller is.
He is here, but I have a feeling her questions are going to be more us. I'm not sure that is.
Well, kind of duplicate.
Okay.
The first question, to preface the question, is there is a residence on that property.
Correct, and we allow residences, we allow persons to live on a commercial property.
That work there or?
Correct.
Okay, because that was, if it's a B1.
There is a note under the schedule of uses that allows that if the person is related to the business, they are allowed to reside on the property.
Okay, that was my question was,
Yep.
I mean, this is a, there's a
Yeah, no.
really nice house on there, then what are they gonna, can they still live there?
So, yes, so.
They can't rent it.
They can't rent it. It has to be, they have to live And
they're aware of that.
they are. They are already, they were residing on it. The reason for the change is to allow a portion of their property to become more of an event center, which would allow a kitchen. They are not spot zoned. They are directly across the street from a B2 or D1, so the Dollar General. So we are keeping our zoning in line. We talked extensively with them about what they're trying to do, what's happening there, and it's secondary buildings that are going to be used for commercial purposes, which is allowed in our.
So if at some point they decide they want to separate the residents, they'll have to come back and say, hey, can we take this
They'd have to
1 acre out and
replat.
make
They'd have to
it back to
replat,
R1?
correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any citizen comments on this item? It's a historic home. Any citizen comments on this item?
You want to make a comment, Ann?
All I was gonna say is that it's a historic piece of property. And, he can't divide it up because the whole property is historic. So
Just in this one instance, there's a caveat.
there's a caveat and, the historic preservation is all in agreement with it. We had no problem with it. I just want those who are looking at rezoning to realize that the whole property has to stay intact.
Okay, so the house can't be separated from the other
Not,
houses, buildings that are on the property?
no.
Not quite. Any other citizen comments on this item? Great, do I have a motion to approve ordinance number 2023.01.10D? I have a motion for Ms. Harris and a second for Ms. Walker. All those in favor, please raise your hand. 5-0 approved. Okay, item 9, we're gonna pull, we don't need to go preliminary plat. At this time, I'm gonna take, let's take a 9-minute recess, I'll see everyone back at 7 o'clock.
Stacy, on item 7, there is 4 places where the dates are wrong.
Okay, we'll make sure.
3 of them I had messaged you, but not. Let's see, page 40.
Oh, I gotta wait.
I did not message you about page 40. Or page, right?
I can't really.
As soon as I like,
You're protecting her?
All right, guys, 7:00, we're gonna reconvene. We're gonna move on to item 12, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding a request from Dennis Moore for the council to reconsider the contract for city administrator Michael Lemons. Mr. Moore.
I want to thank the council and mayor for allowing this to be on the agenda. I just got 2 points. One is I know that Michael's accused of not working with the county. And as far as I'm concerned, the philosophy he has been the one I had with many other councilmen and people through the years. I just want what's fair. I had a conversation with the commissioner today. He said that they would not share, they could not share the tax. That was a conversation with the commissioner today, the only one that was in the office. So I think he's been a staunch advocate for the city. Not let us get run over. Another one is I know that y'all are going to be requiring the new administrator to live in the county. And that was a criticism of Michael. I would just remind you, I worked in Granbury for 10 years. My neighbor's a fireman. There's tons of firemen and policemen that work in other cities. I know the mayor works in Granbury. I know most of you have jobs that you're doing business outside the city. I know Kelly worked for the city of Crowley for years and commuted. I know a lot of the deputies don't live here, fire chief. And I'm not against these things. I'm not against the city secretary. I believe you live in Stephenville. The code enforcement lady lives in Bosque County. And we allow people on our boards that don't live in the city to deal with city things. And I'm not against it. Ann Carver's she's the chairman of the preservation board.
That's correct, but I also can live the rules of the.
I know you can, and I'm just saying that as a point. I'm not criticizing it, and I'm not against it, but I would.
It would be preferred, not mandatory, is what you're trying
Anyway,
to
I'm
say.
not criticizing it. I'm just pointing this out, and I'm not against all that, but requiring somebody to live in the county and with the climate of real estate, it's pretty expensive to ask somebody to do that. You might give them a 1-year contract, they'll renew it, and then they've got a house, and that's happened before with city administrators. That's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Questions from Mr. Moore?
Just have a comment. Okay. I understand what you're saying, Dennis. I mean, and yeah, a lot of our emergency services people live out of the county because they can't afford to live here. However, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the city administrator or city manager who deals with the citizens on a daily basis and makes decisions with the citizens on a daily basis, I feel like they need to live here in Glen Rose or Somerville County to where what they put into effect affects them as well as the citizens. And that's just what I'll say about that.
Comments up here? Mr. Bryant?
Yeah, I'm Chris Bryant, 301 Gray Street. I don't have a lot to say either. I just want to confirm a few things. One, I didn't know, I heard that there was a petition going around. I didn't know really how far the council was going to take that or look at that or not. But regardless, I wanted to say that I do, as a prior councilman of 12 years, I understand the pressures y'all have as far as, you get people from the audience, the citizens, telling you, offering their opinions or calls and visiting your home or you visiting theirs. So everybody has an opinion, but I think citizens all should understand that the council has their own pressures and their own positives and negatives of why, this contract was put together, whether it's renewed or terminated, whatever the reason. I don't even know anything about it, but we appreciate everything you're doing. I'll tell you, watching this tonight, I'm glad I'm out because there's a lot of pressures there. So we have to look at y'all to make the right decision, regardless of how the contract goes. So we do appreciate y'all. And I know Mr. Moore said there's a lot of positives about Mr. Lemons. I can probably offer 10 times that in the other direction. And that's just my opinion. Of course, this council knows all those positives and negatives, and we've got to look at y'all to make that right decision. We just appreciate it, and don't really have much more to say than that, but I'm sure the decision will be the right one. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other citizen comments on this item?
speaking for myself, not as anything else. I'll be honest, last I knew, the negotiations had been made and Mr. Lemons had submitted a resignation, and this is all, I'm apparently not in the gossip of what's coming up and why all this is being discussed again. Mr. Lemons does a fantastic job for our city in 1,000 different ways. Is there flaws? We all have flaws in our leadership and our management. We're humans. If indeed we are looking to bring him back on board, I hope that some of the animosity that has occurred in the past can be put behind us so that there is no more he said, she said types of arguments. If it doesn't work out and we are proceeding with looking for another administrator, I hope you guys have a really good plan for handling the interim, because I don't believe you have anybody lined up to hire. As we still don't have a building official and as we don't have a lot of other things that we desperately need to continue this city and making it the best vision of what we want it to be. So I'm not giving anything other than be smart. Look at the bigger picture, put flaws behind us, and remember we all are flawed, and decide what's going to be the best thing for all of the residents to keep our growth in the way we want it to be and to keep our citizens being taken care of the way that they are paying for it.
Any other citizen comments on this item?
Rhonda Hawthorne, Luoli Edition. Is there a reason why we are paying him 4 months of salary?
That was part of the contract negotiation.
So he did submit a contract. So we weren't planning on getting rid of him prior. Not renewing his contract.
We were discussing the contract as it's.
Okay. So Michael came to y'all and submitted this contract that he wanted to be paid out 4 months. I'm just, because a citizen, here we go with Chester all over again. So I was just wondering why we are paying him 4 months of contract left. And then if we hire somebody new, then we have to pay their salary. So we're doubling, we're piggybacking again. That's all. I mean, I don't know the whole story and I don't want to know. So I'm just asking why we're paying him 4 months of contract and why we agreed to this.
Mr. Lemon's attorney wrote up the.
Change, yeah, there's no termination.
Contract.
So there's no, absolutely no termination.
There was,
We
it was a
just changed
resignation.
we just changed the guidelines of the contract
Okay,
and the terms.
okay. I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, there wasn't a resignation.
Okay,
There wasn't a termination. It was just a change of terms.
thank you.
Okay, any other citizen questions or comments on this item? Going once? Going twice? All right. What's the pleasure of the council on this one? How do you want to move forward?
Think we want to?
Can you take it? That the head and nod heads, no action? Mr. Freeze, what are your thoughts?
Yes, no action.
No action, okay. Take no action and move on to the next item. Item 13, discussion, consideration, possible action regarding a request from Lori and Tom Waltermeyer and Charles Porter to address drainage issues in the Vista Ridge addition. Mr. Lemons, is this yours or? Come on up, whoever wants to speak.
Charles Porter, I'm at 102 Easy Street. Tony's coming up with me. We have a number of others in the area. Two things, or maybe three, I don't know. Kelly Harris, thank you so much for telling us that there's plenty of money in the city coffers. I love to hear that. That was news to my ear. And also, I do want to say that we appreciate very much the fact that y'all did consider back when and make the current drainage consideration on Easy Street happen with the contract that's out in Tuscan Village, I believe is correct. So an addendum there. Appreciate that. That is coming to a conclusion. However, we had discussed last time in the open setting, I came up and spoke, and we were short. And we'd asked that it be carried down around to the end of the street due to the water flow that still comes out of that empty vacant space currently, that we understand there's supposed to be 7 houses built in on Vista Ridge and Skyline. I don't know that that's for a fact, but I understand that that's a true statement. So we're going to get more drainage in that area, and it affects greatly 108 and 106 Easy Street, which is the Deere's residence. John's here somewhere.
Correction, Vista Ridge, not Easy Street.
Oh, Vista Ridge, excuse me, Vista Ridge. Is the Deere residence and Waltermeyer residence, and they get a tremendous amount of water that runs back off the lots, down the street, and into their yards, down the driveways, et cetera. So instead of having the flat curb that's currently there, was put in with the original development, that is now from the Waltermeyer driveway all the way down to Valley View, has been elevated with the 6-inch curb and looks to be like it's going to work great. But from the 106 driveway down to the end where the road turns, Vista Ridge makes a turn and then goes back out to Texas. There is a flat curve, and the water's still going to come into the lot of the Deeres and the Waltermeyers at that point. What we would like is to just extend in whatever way it wants to be done, that drainage situation to elevate that curve and to put the water down the street and on down and around the corner at Vista Ridge, and then it will drain down into the creek or on down and go on the way out to the little ponds that are in the line there. So that's what we would like to ask you to do. I don't know how many of you are familiar with our little area out there, but come out and see us sometime. It's a nice little place. Tony's here as well.
So it's Anthony Waltermeyer or Tony, and I live at 106 Vista Ridge. I'm just going to reiterate Mr. Porter's point that even though construction has been done there to help abate some of the drainage issues, it kind of starts on the north side of the Vista Ridge and runs all the way down. Now, some of it also comes from Skyline, so that's a whole different story. But the original drainage is not being picked up till it's just past my property line. So everything before that is still flowing into my front yard, down my driveway, and it's actually flowing into the lot next door from my driveway that is now protected by 6-inch curb. So initially, I thought when they said they were doing the drainage on Vista Ridge, it was going to be the whole street and not a portion. So hopefully we can address the drainage issue for the entire street. Thank you.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Fuller or Mr. Waltermeyer? Another second one. Okay. Do you have any questions in general? Would you like to get Jim up here? I know you all discussed it.
I'd like to hear Jim. Mr. Holder?
Mr. Holder?
You and I walked that property and looked at all the concerns that these gentlemen are talking about. What are your thoughts as far as putting a 6-inch or any amount of curbing there? Where does the water go?
Well, you know, when we made the adjustment to add a 6-inch curb down through there, I was not aware that there was a problem on the north end. I was told the problem was at the Skyline at the intersection there. So that's kind of what we addressed. And I guess after we awarded the contract, probably almost a month later, we got a 2-inch rain. And that's when it was brought to my attention that there was a problem. So I received a video showing some water coming off of the north corner down there, and it was coming through Mr. Deere's yard, crossing his driveway into Anthony's property. And so, I mean, I think a 6-inch curb, adding it from where we stopped, I measured it, it's 186 feet down around the curb. I think that would solve it, but it appears that both driveways would have to be torn out to put 6 inches of rise on the driveway as well, or it's just gonna turn right down the driveway. so,
Right, just be funneled down into the driveway?
yeah.
Is the current water flow flowing as designed, right? I've lived in multiple different houses and each time there's kind of a different plan and I've been the one to get the water and get into my living room before, so I've kind of been on every aspect, but if developed, it's supposed to be developed so that water flows in a particular way. So is it doing what it was developed to do and folks just don't like it? Is it, we've done something that's made it worse? What's the function as per the design?
I mean, I wasn't around when that was designed and put in, but it appears to me that they had a flat curb on the downhill side of the street and a 6-inch curb on the uphill side. So it's just backwards.
Yeah.
So it almost appears like they were trying to capture the water for their water feature, but I'm not. I'm not sure.
So they have a water
Okay.
feature
Got it.
there, or they did have?
Well, there's kind of a natural drainage way that splits the properties, but they stacked some rocks in there and made a creek, waterfall, you know. I don't think that's in.
It's not used. That creek begins up on the county road, and I don't know the number there, 30 something. But the county road up towards the Promise, there's a hill there, and it collects water from that property area and brings it up to the street, down that ditch, so to speak, and then down to Vista Ridge, off of Texas on the Vista Ridge, and then underneath and into that area he's talking about. That's the east and north side. And then on the other side, he was talking about actually what, the big empty lot, the curb on the uphill side and the flat curb on the downhill side, which may have at some point been designed that way by the developer and accepted by the city. I don't, we weren't there then. We have a couple of folks that were, who, Frank here, he got flooded pretty immediately, I think, in the situation, back early on. So, we appreciate y'all's efforts there. We hope it's gonna happen.
If we come in, or anyone comes in and redoes the approach on the driveway, is there too much slope to be able to have a rise and then fall back? Because some of these lots are ditched like this.
We've already run into that problem on Easy Street. Sometimes it's difficult to stay in the right of way. You almost have to carry the concrete further in to come up 6 inches, break over, and slowly transition back to the original grade where cars don't drag. So that's already happening at Easy Street. We have, the contractor's gonna have to tear that out and redo it. Both of those driveways slope
Significantly.
a lot, but I don't know.
Chris? Yeah, that's difficult to do with these projects with existing driveways. One thing that we have to maintain a certain height of the driveway to match the curb to keep the water from running down the driveway.
Excuse me, I was like, this is our engineer for you guys that don't know.
Yeah, so the goal, we ran into this before, a lot of portions of the city deal with this, and a lot of them are right on the edge of working and not working, really. We help make that work more by not having a straight point, by making a more general gradual change in slope, but every car is different. There's different types of cars, there's different lengths of cars, there's different heights, so it's difficult to do that. There's no general rule that I know of in the industry that says this will always, or there's a maximum that you could do, so.
Would putting a drain in there, I don't know, I mean, you'd have to have a place for it's drained too, but would something like that be
If you
feasible?
turn something below grade, you'd have to run something below grade from there all the way down to where it can daylight again, which in this case, wouldn't quite work.
And it'd be pretty cost prohibitive too, to end up doing strip drains and underground drainage and all kinds of stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're taking one out currently on Vista Ridge that they had cross street that directed into the the current ditch that we're diverting water away from with the curb, so. Like Jim said, the original intent was to keep water out of the ditch that I was aware of, keep water out of the ditch behind the houses from the intersection on. We never really looked at from the point that they're talking about up, but it's definitely possible that curve is on that curve. It'll just be I haven't looked at the grades of the driveways that we're talking about either. I know they're steep and they're gonna be on the edge, but,
So it'd be like, what we're talking about is if we just add a curb, but don't do anything for the driveway, the water's just gonna go down the curb and then go in their drive and get back in their yard anyway.
correct, and I think the issue that I've heard is that the water's coming down into their driveway and it's kind of following the low point, which is across their yard, across their driveway towards the drainage in the middle of the development.
Well, then would adjusting the grade in the yard resolve that issue? No?
It's still the water's still gonna go to the yard.
Got it, and then it just emptied out.
That's part of,
Got it.
so.
Yep.
A berm?
They could,
Way to do
you
a
could
berm, maybe?
use the driveway to divert it around. I mean, you could have the curb that protects their yard in front of their house.
But then it'll
Send
go
it down the
into their
driveway
house.
and let it go on the side of their driveway wherever, to where it's currently going. But I think there's a drainage easement on that next lot. I'm not sure for sure. I'd have to look at the plat and see. But you,
Yeah, since I live there, first of all, my driveway does have a downgrade, but even a 2 or 3 inch, because it's flat now, it's perfectly flat. And it doesn't take a 2-inch rain to send the water down my driveway. It's any rain. And originally between my house and the lot next door, there's a 20-foot easement for drainage. The water doesn't run down there. So apparently, and that's the prior developer or whatever, but the water doesn't follow that path. So it comes down along my driveway and it's actually starting to eat out underneath my driveway. And it goes straight south from there. So it's not even following the drainage path.
Right.
And there's been some argument whether the city has some maintaining of that, because that's where sewer pipes or something are.
No,
What kind of,
it's an easement to get back to the sewers.
to the
sewers
sewer
are
that's in the
running down
ditch?
creek.
Okay, so we are new to the subdivision. We just moved in a year and a half ago. So when we noticed this information, so I have sent the mayor and I think most of the council members pictures of videos. And you can see that it doesn't have to be a downpour. And it literally fills up my front yard because we're also taking all the water from Mr. Deere's property.
I think the misunderstanding is everybody thinks that it's coming down the yards. It's coming down the yards off of the road, but it's also coming down our driveway. So it's not just the road that it's coming down. It's the entire, from the corner of Mr. Deere's yard over, and that everything, nothing's being blocked. And like my husband said, it is literally, you can see the dirt coming out from underneath our driveway. It's not that, our house is not that old. And this isn't something that, like, we're not causing this. And I apologize that only half of Vista Ridge, everybody was aware of. If we were aware of this, we thought it was the whole thing, that's what we were understanding. So it is bad, and I invite everybody to come over and take a look. I have videos on top of videos. I'm out there with umbrellas, taking
We get a
stuff.
4-inch rain, you guys can come out and tell us.
I have a question.
Hold on, 1 second. Mr. Porter has the face. You have something to add to what she had just said?
Well, yes, I was going to mention that about 6 months ago, last fall, maybe I need to go back a little further. We had a 5-inch rain over a couple of, late one afternoon and most of the night and all the next day, and it was about 5 inches or so. Should have been over then. Water was cascading out of the ditch, the divert ditch, and through concrete coming up through the driveway. And it needs to be corrected in some fashion. Because am I correct in saying, I've said this a couple of times, that there are 7 houses designed to go into that development in that, I call it the thumb corner there between Skyline and Vista Ridge. It's currently, there's no houses there? Is anybody aware?
I know the property recently was purchased by a builder, all those lots, but I haven't seen if there's any plans have been.
I haven't seen, I was called by by a title company twice about were these lots in our subdivision, in our HOA, and I said, no, they're not, they're on Vista Ridge and then Skyline. So I know there's some action going there, and I've heard scuttlebutt is there's 7 houses going in there in the upper scale stuff like his own Creekside. So that's gonna just add to the problem of drainage there.
Ms. Walker. Chris, we were at a house this weekend that they had a similar problem, but the water was coming from the back of their property and it would flood into their house. So they took, and they hired someone, but they had some people come and dig about this far down in the rocks in their yard. And they put a, kind of like a French drain. They filled it full of gravel and the water, it goes into it and it actually, it went all the way to out of their yard, and so the water diverted. Would something like that help them?
Just to comment quickly on
Wait,
that.
I was talking to the engineer.
Yeah, there's certainly more than one way to resolve the issue. I understand that there's drainage flowing across their yard. I haven't done the calculation to quantify that. I know I've heard a lot and significant, and I'm not discounting that at all. I just haven't done the crunch numbers to see how much we're talking about and what can be done to fix it, but that is certainly an option, is to do improvements on the property to direct it somewhere else or to